Okay, so I wanted to continue to look for additional HP sort of mini computers out there from back when. And after I did the one about the HP Pavilion Mini, one of the viewers mentioned about this HP Elite Slice. There's actually a space in between the word Elite and Slice. It was a unit that was sold primarily as something that you could use in, let's say, a conference room. Um, the first generation was also touted as being one that you could use for just you're just a normal mini PC type thing. But the second generation, the G2, was really hyped up as being something for a conference room. So I thought, oh, okay, this is great. I'll look on eBay. Found a listing. It happened to be an auction, and I won. And when I was looking at the initial information on it, it said, oh, untested, because they didn't have the power supply. And I've purchased other ones like that. I'm sure you guys have also. And so I ordered it and I got it home. Or I should say, I got it in the mail and plugged it in and nothing. Dead. I tried pulling stuff out, putting the stuff in, opening it up, looking at the stuff, the whole 9 yards. It just won't turn on. This unit came with 16 gig of DDR4 memory, a 256 gig SSD, SATA SSD drive, and an i5 6500T. So, yeah, another dead computer to be used for parts. But I still want to make a video on it because there's some neat things about this. And for those that might be interested in it, how do I open it up? What are the features? I still want to present that. And I'm going to use all the parts for something that I went ahead and ordered and is going to be in the future video. So let's start. This came out, this particular unit, around 2016. And like I said, this one was an i5 6500T. It actually used the same chip as the your normal 800 G3. This one is the first gen unit. There's really not a whole lot of difference between this one and the G2. The G2, they just touted a few more stuff. It came with some more add-ons, but the basic unit was the same. I think with the G2, essentially right out of the box, you got an i5 7500T, which is kind of like with the G3, the Elite Desk 800 G3s, where you can go both 6th and 7th generation, that kind of thing. So here's what it looks like. Let's look at the back, see what we've got here. This is an Intel network adapter. You've got USB-C. You've got two normal USB ports, DisplayPort, HDMI. On the side, you got another USB-C, and I believe this is for headphones. I think this one you had to turn on via the BIOS. By default, it was off. And then some units, somewhere on the side here, you could also enable a fingerprint reader, which was kind of cool. And then these could stack with add-ons because they had this little interface connector here, and you would just stack them on top of each other. And you could have things like a DVD drive, you could have speakers, you could have a VESA mount, various things. They also sold a alternative cover to this that had little controls on here that you could use for your meeting. Things like probably like a mute button, maybe volume, that kind of thing. And again, they had speakers. The G2 came with a speaker that was about this wide or this high that would go underneath actually, excuse me, on top of it, they also had an external screen that was kind of cool that you could use for controlling things too. But let's look at this. To get into it, we're going to take out these 4 screws here. Put that to the side. Okay. This is where you'd put your memory. It can take up to 32 gig of DDR4. This is where you could have a SATA SSD. This one actually does have it in there. I'm going to be taking this out soon. I just left it back in for now. You take out these 4 screws here, and then the whole thing comes out, and it's kind of like in a little cage. Let's see. And it just comes out, and then you would just detach this. And then these screws here you take out, and then you'd have your SSD by itself. So this was a 256. This is what the unit originally came with. The actual unit, when I looked up the serial number, it only came with 8 gig. So and the 256 on here. One nice thing is they put the serial number just about everywhere. I don't know if you can see that here. This says serial number on it. This has the serial number on it. And of course you can look it up just like anything else in the Parts Surfer or on the HP warranty check. Now we want to take off the top. So this is how you get memory and SATA. And then there's 4 screws right here. And then that pops this off. Okay, now let's turn it over. Couple things to point out. This right here, let's get a little. This right here was the connector that would go for this real fancy Bang Olufsen speaker setup that again was probably, what would that be, maybe, I don't know, 4 inches high. But what it would do is you wouldn't have this cover anymore. You would instead take this off, stick that big thing on top. It connects to this particular one here, and then it has its own set of controls, like for volume, that sort of thing. So in here, this unit doesn't have it, but this is where if you had Wi-Fi installed, you know, your Wi-Fi card, and then it would also have the antenna. The specs say that if you wanted to have Wi-Fi, you had to order it at the time. You know, it wasn't something you could add later on. And given the fact that it's kind of difficult to get inside of this thing, I can kind of understand. Now what we can do is let's take off the heatsink, because I'll show you some other stuff you can do with this. Heatsink is here, and it's got our normal numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, as far as how we're supposed to take it off and put it back on. It looks like it probably uses the same T15. Let's... And believe me, if anybody out there has more knowledge on the slice and has been able to resurrect one from the dead, let me know. You know, it would be nice to use this. Thankfully, I'm pretty much breaking even in terms of the what to go with. You know, again, it's the risk you take. I mean, you kind of almost wish that it would either say specifically, hey, this doesn't work. You're just getting straight out parts. Or, hey, yeah, it looks really good, and you know, there's a good chance of everything, but when it's kind of that gray area, it could be a little difficult. So Okay, so we undo the screws and we kind of put this to the side. I guess if we wanted to, we could, let's see, does this detach? Let's see if it does. There. Not sure if I would really pull it out that same way just because, it's really easy to take those screws out. But you can see this is your heat sink. This is where you would normally put your thermal paste and such. Or I should say, you're going to put it on the CPU and then it's going to, rub off on here. So I took the CPU out already because I'm going to be using it for somewhere else. But this is where your CPU would be. Over here, you can see that there's a slot where we could put a 2280 NVMe. So, that's, which is, and not so wild, the fact that I got to take out a heat sink in order to get to here. It kind of reminds me of the 800, the G1s, where you had to take the whole thing off. But, you are talking about a very tight area, but it'd be kind of nice to be able to get to it. Yeah, you're probably not going to change it that often, but still. Does not support a 2230, or, doesn't have the hole here, so you'd have to use one of those funky kind of extenders if you want to actually use something other than a 2280. I can't recommend or I can't say no or can't say yes on this because, of course, I haven't gotten it to work. Kind of nice, kind of small. Of course, I can't also give you any kind of power stuff. Now, what's interesting is the G2 model, which in looking at the specs, looking at the service manual, it looks like essentially the same unit. The only thing was they made a big deal out of the fact that you could get more add-ons. It was supposed to be blessed by Microsoft for use with Teams, so that kind of thing. And one way that you'll know if you're getting a G2 is that on the bottom of the unit, where normally, it's really hard to read on here. Let's see. I'm not even going to try. But on here, it says that it only needs the normal 65 watt power supply. But on the G2, it will say that you need the 90 watt power supply. It will actually have the 19.5 volt, 4.62 amp. So you're going to need a 90 watt for it. And if you take the serial number and look it up, it'll actually say G2. So that's another way to know. A lot of the listings, I was able to see the serial number and be able to look up stuff. This one was a little harder to read. I really couldn't read it until I actually got the unit, and then I was able to check some of the stuff out. So, let me know what if there are other, if there's HP Elite Slice enthusiasts out there, let me know how it's worked for you. And again, if anyone get any suggestions as far as what to look for in terms of getting it to work.